What is up, successful dropouts? Man, it's been a while since I've said that, actually. Man, I wanted to get back on the mic here and record an episode for you guys because I feel like I owe you guys an explanation as to why I haven't uploaded the past several weeks. And first of all, I want to apologize for not mentioning my reasoning any sooner in the group or anything like that. I just kind of went dark, and there's been people contacting me like, hey, where are the regular episodes? What's going on here? I haven't got any people saying, are you okay? Which I suppose is a good thing. But I just jumped on to Libsyn to look at our downloads and kind of how active the podcast has been, and really surprised to see still getting thousands of downloads, which I would have expected more significant drop-off than there has been. But I mean, there's been somewhat of a drop-off, but yeah, definitely not as much as I thought there would be. Anyways, so what happened is beginning of July, I had some business in Barcelona, and I also had some business towards the end of the month in Berlin. So my wife and I decided to just stack an entire Europe trip around that in about 33 days or so. And the way we like to travel is not, we're not typical tourists. We don't like to do all the touristy things. We both can work from the road, just from our laptops. And so we like to just rent Airbnbs at cities that we're visiting and stay there for longer periods of time and just get to know the local attractions, both like the locals, and then also like find our favorite cafes and bars and places to eat and stuff. And so that's what we did. We were in Barcelona for a week, which was a blast. From there, we went to Rome for about a week. From there to Florence for about a week and a half. Then we went up to Venice, and then finally on to Berlin. And, it was more like a workcation there. We had a regular schedule. We got up, we worked out, we worked for like 6 hours, maybe at our local like favorite cafe. And then in the evening and night, we'd go out and see the sights. And we did see a couple of the touristy things. We went and did the tour of the Colosseum and some of the other sites to see in Rome. We went and saw a Statue of David in Florence, and went up to Venice for a day and just toured around there. We hopped on a gondola there in Venice. My wife has had this dream to have me take her on a gondola ride in Venice for the last 10 years, like when we were just dating. And so I was finally able to make that dream come true, and it also happened to be her birthday. And so it just worked out really well. And actually, we randomly ran into some of my cousins as well in Venice. Not planned. We knew they were in Europe at the same time, but we just happened to be in Venice at the same time on just the one day we were going to visit. And so that was really cool. Let's see what else happened. I mean, Barcelona, if you guys have ever been, is just fantastic. I would highly recommend the nightlife there. I was at a conference, but these kinds of conferences, you don't really go there so much to learn or to you go there to network, basically. And the best way to network is just to have fun and make friends. And so a lot of nights out, a lot of great times, great memories with some fantastic people, and good relationships made and deals made, and a little bit of money made as well from some of these deals. And it was a good time. But prior to that, I hadn't done a very good job of pre-recording episodes, I guess. And so when we were going on this trip, I was like, babe, I have no idea how I'm going to keep up with. We've got this schedule, and I just know it's going to be really difficult to keep uploading regularly. And prior to this, for a couple months prior to this, and especially coming into June, I was really having a lot of different thoughts around Successful Dropout. Earlier this year, I got involved with a couple projects, and most mostly involved really heavily now in leading a blockchain tech startup in the performance marketing or affiliate marketing space. And I'd love to tell you guys more about that at a later time, but very heavily involved there, a project that has a lot of potential. And I love to nerd out on the technology, and I love to build businesses. And so it's a great fit for me, but I've just been spending more and more time on that and some of the other projects we've got going on. And when you stack Successful Dropout up to these other projects that I'm working on, just in terms of ROI, it doesn't really stack up to the other projects. And of course, the kind of ROI I'm talking about is monetary, right? It's like what pays the bills. And of course, I get a lot of return on investment from Successful Dropout, just in terms of I love to see the lives changed and the people inspired, and get to meet and talk with you all and see the community grow. It's amazing, and Successful Dropout is very near and dear to my heart. It's like an extension of me and who I am, and the Successful Dropout philosophy, especially, and just that approach, that tenacious approach towards life, is so key and something I'm still very passionate about. And so there's that return on investment there too. But we're also at a point in our lives, both Tay and I were 28, and I'm not making any commitments on live here, but we are, starting to talk about kids and what that might look like. And, our careers are to a certain point where they're growing. And if we continue to push as hard as we have been, we could really leave it's my dream to leave a really substantial legacy and to build some great and really profitable and wide-reaching businesses. And I think Successful Dropout can be that. It's just the other things I'm working on right now are just showing a bit more traction and having the kind of ROI that we really need right now. And at the end of the day, I have to be smart. And one of my affirmations I say to myself every day is I'm a wise manager of my time, my money, and my resources. And so those are the kinds of things I was thinking about leading up to this trip. And so I told Tay, I said, look, maybe it's not such a bad thing. Maybe we go on this trip and I just don't upload for a while, and I take this time to really reflect and think about Successful Dropout and all the other things we're doing. And that was a really tough decision to make, because I don't think I've missed one episode since we started over 2 years ago. And some weeks I was uploading 2 or more episodes as well. So I think this stretch is the first that I've really missed putting out episodes. So it was a really strange thing, and I don't take those things lightly. I like to think that I know I'm the type of person that perseveres and that is really consistent and steady and shows that just that perseverance. So that was a difficult decision, but obviously it was made, because here we are several weeks later with no episodes. And it was a really good trip. I had a lot of time to think and reflect, and we've been home a couple weeks now. And so I know that I figured I owed you guys an episode. I know I do. And so here it is. In terms of, let's talk in terms of Successful Dropout and kind of my thoughts on that. Because the other component to this too, guys, is if I'm being completely honest, it wasn't just looking at what's my return on investment here. It was also, I was personally starting to get a little bit bored of making these episodes myself. Definitely not of Successful Dropout, not of the community, but just bored of the episodes. And that doesn't mean like the guests always fascinating. They're always fascinating. And I've loved having every one of our guests on. The conversations are just incredible. And I've made some incredible lifelong relationships out of those and many opportunities. In fact, the company that I'm running today, it was a direct result of the very first episode I ever recorded. It's not the first episode. If you go back, it's not episode number 1, but I'll tell everybody, later more details about it. But it was released later, but it was the very first person I ever had on the show that I ever interviewed, and ended up working with him and his company, and now he's kind of a partner in this new venture. So it's really exciting stuff. It's led to a lot of great things for me, and I think for several people in the community. But if I'm being completely honest, just creating the episodes themselves, I just wasn't, it didn't grip me as it started not to grip me, I guess, as much as it did before. And slowly I started to get kind of bored with it, if I'm being frank. And I tried to pivot a little bit, and that's where we went into season 2, where it was shorter episodes and more detailed and in-depth how-tos. But even then, that didn't really help. I still was finding myself not really enjoying it as much as I used to. And it's one of those things where when you know that you don't enjoy something, but you're still putting it out there for people like you that are listening, I don't want to. I mean, there's two components to this. Like, one, I've typically never done what other people, done something just because people expect me to do it, right? It's this part of the Successful Dropout philosophy. Like, you do you, trust your gut, and no matter what society says, you go and you do what's right for you, and it's this freedom. It's sacrificing the security for the freedom, right? I mean, that's part of the Successful Dropout philosophy. So there's that component, but the other one is, I don't want to be pushing these episodes out if I don't really enjoy them and do you guys a disservice in that way. I want to be, whatever I put out into the community and do for this community, I want to do it because it's genuinely, I'm genuinely passionate about it and wanting to do it, right? And so there's all these things to think of, and I would, to quote Steve Jobs, and I guess this isn't a direct quote, but it's from his 2005 Stanford address, which if you haven't watched, I would go look up on YouTube. It's absolutely incredible. But he says something to the extent of, if you wake up too many days in a row and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, man, I am not excited about what I have to go do today, then it's time to consider a change, a switch, a pivot, or a quit. And so that's basically the point I'm at with the podcast, I guess you could say. So what does that mean? The Successful Dropout community is not going anywhere. So I want to make that clear. The Facebook group and the forum, the community is still very active and engaged, and I have even been away from that for a while. I haven't been in the Facebook group for a while. I haven't commented for a while, and it's still incredible to see all the engagement there, and it's great. Yeah, it's just great to see that, and that's not going anywhere. I think the biggest change will come with the podcast, and honestly, I don't know what that looks like yet. I just don't. If I'm just kind of riffing around on the idea, like right here live, I feel pretty certain that the podcast won't be like it was before, that it's not going to be these weekly 30-minute to hour-long interviews with some of the same questions, and it's probably not going to be what you guys are used to. I can't even say for certain right now that the Successful Dropout podcast will even continue. But what I can say is that if it does continue, what I'm leaning more towards is more episodes like this, where I basically just get on the mic and I share about what I'm doing, I guess. Kind of like Dear Diary style, maybe a little bit. I mean, just thinking off the top of my head, it would be really cool to have. And if you guys are listening and have any feedback, or you hear me say something and you're like, yes, I want that, like I'd love to know. Just hit me up in the Facebook group or something. But just off the top of my head, I'm thinking it'd be cool to maybe do some segments where it's like, maybe here's kind of a nugget of wisdom that I've really been learning and pondering lately, and maybe do that for 10 minutes. And then another segment where I'm just like, here's what's going on in my life right now, like a follow along in the life of a successful dropout, somebody who's trying to build a couple different businesses and all the different daily struggles and realizations and stuff that go along with that. Because trust me, there are plenty. and then maybe some other more fun segment or something like that. Something sort of consistent, but more just, I guess, free flowing, and for me to just share my thoughts and feelings on stuff. Because I don't mind doing that. And I guess if people want to listen, go for it. But I guess I need to feel whatever happens with the podcast from here. I need to feel less pressure, and I guess less pressure to keep things the way they were before. And I'm totally fine with that. And personally, I want you guys to know that I know some of you have been listening since day one. I've met some of you guys, and it's crazy to me that like some of you guys have come to, for instance, our juice bar, our yoga studio here in Yakima, Washington, and you've come and said hi, and I've taken pictures with you, and it's incredible. And you guys have been listening since the first episode, and you'll be like, oh, I remember in that one episode, like you and Tay were joking about this or that, and it's like it's such a weird feeling to have people like that know and understand your life so well, because they've just been listening to hundreds of hours worth of your voice. I guess it's just a really weird feeling to me, but I can't thank you guys enough for listening to the podcast and for being on this journey with me, and for listening to all our wonderful guests that came on the show, and for those of you who are heavily involved in the community and all the engagement there. Can't thank you enough for that. It's been incredible. I just, in terms of, again, specifically the podcast, I'm not sure what I need to do right now with it. I know I just don't want to continue on the way things were. And right now, frankly, things with our other ventures are really starting to ramp up, and they're super, super exciting. Of course, it's like anything, it's like a roller coaster. Like literally yesterday, something happened that I was just like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to be on the streets in a few months? Okay, it wasn't that bad, but it's just like you feel so down. And then today just got, better news, and I'm back on a high again, and just like, yes, let's do this. It's same old, nothing new. This is what you sign up for. Shoot, I forgot where I was going with that. I guess I was saying, so I don't know. Oh, I was saying that I'm just still very heavily involved in some of these other things, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for the podcast. But I think maybe in the near future here, I would like to still just jump on and riff around like this and just talk about here's what I'm doing. Here's today's struggles. Here's the solutions I found. Here's how I'm feeling about it. Here's some cool things that maybe you can try if you're in a similar position. And basically, here's a day in the life of a successful dropout that's been trying to find his way and build businesses and build a life for himself and his family for the last 8 or so years now. So all that to say, well, I don't know. That's where things sit right now. I just really wanted to get on the mic here and fill you guys in on what's been going on. And again, if you, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, right? But I would love to hear your opinion anyways. And again, I think if the podcast continues on, it's going to be in a pretty loosely formatted, very chill, and probably a lot different than it used to be. And if people don't want to listen anymore, cool. If they do, that's great too. I'd love to have you. But I will always be in the Successful Dropout forum and the Successful Dropout Facebook group. And in addition to that, I'm talking to a couple of our core members on whether or not they want to take more of a leadership role and visionary role with Successful Dropout, because there's always been a ton of potential with this community. And I know in the past, myself and about 10 or so of the other core members have talked about some really cool courses and materials to create for you guys and for new members that come on board. And I still think those are really, really good ideas. And I would love for somebody who has more bandwidth than I do to really take charge of that. And I'm happy to be there in like an advisory capacity and be involved whenever I can. But at this point, there's just other things in my life that need my attention, it's a smarter direction for me to go for where my life and my family is right now. And sincerely, what I'm hoping is that, our resources can grow to a point where I can personally support a podcast like this and the community in even more substantial ways than I do now. And, I don't care if it's a black hole for money, like if it's a money pit or whatever you want to call it. This community needs to exist. It needs to grow and to thrive. And if that means I can grow my resources to a point where I can support it on my own more substantially, maybe hire a couple people, hire somebody to edit the episodes for me, then that's what I want to do. I'm just not at that point yet. And if I'm ever going to get to that point, I need to have the majority of my focus on some of the other things that I'm doing. So I'm kind of rambling on now. I hope this all makes sense. Again, would love to hear from you guys in the Facebook group. But for now, Successful Dropout isn't going anywhere. Just things are switching up a bit. And always remember, stay hungry, stay foolish.